we rock it, so don't stop.
Hi everyone, this is Mr. Lawback. Thanks for joining me. In this video, I'm going to go over the roles and effects of different forms of mass media on political socialization. Remember, political socialization is a lifelong process by which we all learn our political beliefs and attitudes. We've already learned about how the family being the most important at a young age, peer groups, and school affect one's political socialization. Mass media, as a definition, includes the means of communication that can reach large, widely dispersed audiences simultaneously. The 5 major forms of mass media in this video are television, newspapers, radio, magazines, the internet, and social media. Importantly, mass media is not a part of the government in this country. Instead, it is almost entirely privately owned and operated, but it certainly does affect people's political socialization nonetheless. People acquire much of what they know about the government and politics from these various forms of mass media. We will now take a look at each one of these forms a little bit closer. First, we'll take a look at television as a form of mass media. Politics and television have gone hand in hand ever since the technology first appeared in the early 1900s. The first president to appear on TV was Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Today, televisions are present in over 98% of the nation's 115 million households. Television still remains the main source of information for 55% of our population. The 3 major original networks, ABC, CBS, and NBC, have been in competition in recent decades with the 24-hour news cycle channels like CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC. In recent years, television has declined in importance compared to the internet, but still provides a large amount of political information, especially for older Americans. Now let's take a look at newspapers. Newspapers are the oldest form of mass media in the United States. The first regularly published newspaper was the Boston Newsletter, which first appeared in 1704. From the early inception of newspapers in the U.S., politics was often covered extensively. Leading up to the American Revolution, newspapers served as a vital tool in spreading news throughout the colonies. In the U.S., newspapers have traditionally had many readers. Today, there are about 1,300 daily newspapers published in the United States. Newspapers tend to go into greater depth than the television does regarding political stories, and especially with local stories. Now on to radio. Radio as it exists today began in 1920 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It quickly became immensely popular and assumed much of the role in American society that TV plays today. As a major entertainment medium, millions of people planned their daily schedule around their favorite radio programs, much like they do with TV programs today. FDR was the first president to use radio effectively in getting his message out to the masses in a timely fashion. Many thought the arrival of the television would bring an end to the radio as a major form of media. However, radio has survived and is most frequently listened to in the car as people travel back and forth to work. Satellite radio and internet radio have also bumped the importance of radio in recent years as well. Some radio stations are dedicated to providing political analysis and opinions in the form of talk shows. NPR and 1210 AM, also known as the Big Talker, which is a local station, also provides political talk on the radio. Now on to magazines. Several magazines were published in colonial America. Benjamin Franklin began one of the very first, called the General Magazine, in Philadelphia in 1741. Many of the progressive reforms in the early 1900s were spurned because of magazine publications. Notably, the muckrakers were the journalists who exposed wrongdoing in politics, business, and industry and played a key role in the reform of this era, oftentimes known as the Progressive Era. This term was coined by Teddy Roosevelt in 1906. Since newspapers were local publications, magazines were the only national publications prior to the advent of radio and television into the mainstream. The Internet. The internet is a leading and growing source of political views and information for the American people. From its beginnings, the internet has grown immensely and continues to do so with ongoing advancements in computer technology, which allow for even faster access of information for an ever-growing number of people. Today, 85% of Americans report they have access to a computer at home, and 50% of the adults have smartphones they use to go online. These numbers continue to grow. The internet is now in second place to televisions among the mass media in terms of providing political information. In summary, the internet has drastically altered the way Americans acquire and share information. And last but certainly not least, social media. The internet has taken an even further step in the influencing of political socialization in the form of social networking sites, often referred to as social media. The first social media sites were launched starting with MySpace in 2003. Facebook was launched in 2004. In 2005, about 8% of Americans were using social networking sites. This obviously is not that significant of a chunk of American society, 8%. In 2007, Twitter joined the top social networking sites. Facebook had become the world's largest social media site by 2012 with 1 billion users and 500 million daily users. Today, roughly 70% of Americans use some form of social media. These figures are much higher among young people. Nearly half of the people getting their news from Twitter are under the age of 29. Social media networks have had a major impact on politics and the government. They have become an important tool for fundraising, mobilizing supporters, and uniting political activists across the nation. Humanitarian efforts have been greatly aided by these sites as well. When a major earthquake and tsunami destroyed much of Japan in 2011, for example, aid workers used social media for activities such as locating displaced victims, raising disaster relief funds, and disseminating information. Surely, social media will continue to grow in importance not only in everyday life, but also American politics.
Can see but you when you